welcome to the Room of Requirement. Today I'm going to be talking about the Torah, the foundation of Jewish wisdom and mysticism. So this is the last part, the last video of the Kabbalah series that I've done. I've also turned this into a course that is going to be up for you guys to watch. The cool thing about the courses that I have, once you finish watching all of them, you get a badge. And so I have a lot of different courses on there. I think I have at least 8 or so if you guys are interested in that. They're completely free. You can watch them. They're all these videos that I've done that are on a specific subject that you can watch. Okay, anyway, let's go ahead and dive into this. Okay. Few books in human history have shaped civilization as profoundly as the Torah. For thousands of years, it has served as the spiritual foundation of Judaism, influenced Christianity and Islam, inspired philosophers and mystics, guided entire civilizations, and provided the framework from which later traditions such as the Talmud, Kabbalah, the Zohar, and Jewish mysticism would emerge. Yet despite its importance, the Torah is often misunderstood. Many people view it simply as a religious text or a collection of ancient laws. While it certainly contains laws, history, and religious teachings, the Torah is far more than that. It is the story of creation, covenant, identity, morality, spiritual responsibility, and humanity's relationship with the divine. For the mystic, the Torah becomes something even deeper. It is viewed not merely as a book written by human beings, but as a sacred blueprint containing hidden layers of meaning that reveal the structure of reality itself. The Kabbalists would later teach that every letter, every word, every story, and every commandment contains profound spiritual truths waiting to be uncovered. To understand Judaism, Jewish mysticism, the Talmud, Kabbalah, the Zohar, and much of Western spirituality, one must first understand the Torah. The word Torah is commonly translated as law, but its deeper meaning is closer to teaching, instruction, or guidance. This distinction is important because the Torah is not simply a legal code. It is a guide for living. It seeks to teach humanity how to live in harmony with divine principles, ethical conduct, community, and spiritual purpose. The Torah is therefore both a sacred text and a spiritual path. It provides instruction not only for religious practice, but also for the cultivation of wisdom, responsibility, compassion, and awareness. For generations of Jews, the Torah has served as the central source of guidance concerning the relationship between humanity, creation, and God. The Torah consists of 5 books traditionally attributed to Moses. Genesis, known in Hebrew as Bereshit, tells the story of creation, Adam and Eve, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. It explores humanity's earliest relationship with God and introduces many of the foundational themes that shaped the rest of the Torah. Exodus, or Shemot, recounts the enslavement of the Israelites in Egypt, the life of Moses, the Exodus itself, and the giving of the law at Mount Sinai. Leviticus, or Vayikra, focuses on priesthood, ritual practice, holiness, and sacred living. Numbers, or Bamidbar, describes the Israelites' journey through the wilderness and the challenges they face while preparing to enter the Promised Land. Deuteronomy, or Devarim, consists largely of Moses' final teachings and reflections before his death and serves as a summary of many of the Torah's core principles. Together, these 5 books form the foundation of Jewish scripture and identity. One way of understanding the Torah is as sacred history. Its stories describe the origins of the Jewish people, their covenant with God, and the events that shape their identity. Yet the Torah is not simply concerned with recording historical events. It seeks to reveal meaning within those events. The stories serve as vehicles through which larger spiritual and ethical truths are communicated. The Torah asks not only what happened, but why it matters. Its narratives explore themes such as freedom, responsibility, faith, justice, suffering, obedience, redemption, and the ongoing relationship between humanity and the divine. One of the central themes running throughout the Torah is the idea of covenant. A covenant is a sacred relationship or agreement between God and humanity. The Torah describes several important covenants, including those with Noah, Abraham, and the nation of Israel. These covenants establish mutual responsibilities. God offers guidance, protection, and blessing, while humanity is called to live according to divine principles and ethical conduct. The covenant becomes one of the defining ideas of Judaism and shapes much of the Torah's vision of spiritual life. Perhaps the most important event in the Torah is the revelation at Mount Sinai. According to the narrative, Moses ascends the mountain and receives divine teachings on behalf of the people. This moment establishes the foundation of Jewish law, ethics, and religious practice. The giving of the Ten Commandments becomes one of the most influential moments in religious history. These teachings would shape not only Judaism, but also Christianity, Islam, and much of Western civilization. For many mystics, Sinai represents more than a historical event. It symbolizes the possibility of direct encounter between human consciousness and the divine. One of the Torah's primary concerns is ethical behavior. Throughout its pages, we encounter teachings concerning justice, honesty, compassion, responsibility, charity, respect for others, care for the vulnerable, and reverence for life. The Torah consistently emphasizes that spirituality cannot be separated from conduct. True devotion requires ethical action, and this idea would profoundly influence later Jewish thought and remain central to Judaism today. The Torah presents a vision of God that differs significantly from the gods of many ancient cultures. Rather than a tribal deity limited to a particular region or function, the God of the Torah is portrayed as the creator of heaven and earth, the source of existence itself, and the ultimate foundation of morality and justice. At the same time, the Torah recognizes that the divine transcends human understanding. God can be encountered, experienced, and related to, yet can never be fully comprehended. This tension between revelation and mystery would later become one of the defining themes of Jewish mysticism. The Torah is often read as history, but for countless generations of mystics, rabbis, and spiritual seekers, its stories have represented far more than historical events. Beneath every narrative lies a deeper lesson about consciousness, spiritual development, human nature, and humanity's relationship with the divine. The Torah operates on many levels simultaneously. It is history, theology, morality, symbolism, psychology, and mystical teaching woven together into a single sacred text. The Torah opens with one of the most famous passages in all religious literature. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. These words establish one of the central ideas of the Torah, that creation is not random but purposeful. The universe emerges through divine intelligence and order rather than chaos. Over 6 symbolic days, creation unfolds. Light emerges from darkness. The heavens are separated from the waters. Land appears, plants, animals, celestial bodies, and finally humanity comes into being. On the 7th day, God rests, establishing the principle of sacred time and the Sabbath. For mystics, the creation story is far more than an account of physical origins. It represents the emergence of consciousness itself. Light symbolizes awareness. The separation of heaven and earth symbolizes the differentiation of spirit and matter. The unfolding of creation mirrors the process through which divine consciousness manifests into form. The Kabbalists would later view Genesis as one of the deepest mystical texts ever written, containing hidden teachings concerning the structure of reality and the nature of existence itself. The story of Adam and Eve is often interpreted as humanity's fall from grace. Mystics, however, frequently understand it as the awakening of self-awareness. Adam and Eve begin in a state of innocence within the Garden of Eden. They exist in harmony with creation and indirect relationship with the divine. Their encounter with the tree of knowledge introduces duality, self-consciousness, choice, and moral responsibility. The story explores the emergence of human awareness. The moment they eat from the tree, they become conscious of themselves as separate individuals. They recognize opposites such as good and evil, life and death, self and other. For many mystical interpreters, the expulsion from Eden symbolizes the soul's descent into material existence. Humanity enters a world of separation, limitation, and struggle, beginning the long journey back towards spiritual unity. The story of Cain and Abel introduces one of the Torah's recurring concerns, the moral choices that shape human destiny. Cain's jealousy leads him to murder his brother Abel, creating the first act of violence recorded in Scripture. The story explores themes of free will, responsibility, envy, and the consequences of unchecked desire. The Torah repeatedly emphasizes that human beings possess the freedom to choose their actions and that these choices carry consequences. The struggle between higher and lower impulses become one of the central dramas of human existence. Mystically, Cain and Abel can be viewed as symbolic aspects of consciousness itself, the conflict between selfish desire and spiritual aspiration. As humanity descends into corruption and violence, the Torah introduces the story of Noah and the flood. Noah is chosen because of his righteousness and instructed to build an ark to preserve life through a period of purification. The flood represents both destruction and renewal. The old world is washed away, allowing a new beginning to emerge. The ark becomes a symbol of preservation, protection, and spiritual refuge during times of transformation. Mystics often interpret the flood as a process of purification. Just as water cleanses the earth, spiritual development requires the cleansing of the soul. Old patterns must dissolve before renewal can occur. The covenant established with Noah after the flood represents hope, continuity, and an enduring relationship between humanity and the divine. As humanity descends into corruption and violence, sorry about that. I think I read that. I was going to read that twice. Okay. With Abraham, the Torah shifts toward the development of covenantal relationship between God and humanity. Abraham is called to leave behind the familiar and journey towards an unknown future. His willingness to trust and follow divine guidance becomes one of the defining examples of faith within the Torah. Abraham's journey symbolizes the spiritual path itself. Every seeker must eventually leave behind old certainties and venture into the unknown. Growth requires movement, trust, and the willingness to respond to a higher calling. Because of this, Abraham is often viewed as the archetype of the spiritual seeker and the father of the monotheistic faith. The stories of Isaac and Jacob continue the unfolding covenant. Jacob's life is particularly significant because it contains many themes that would later become central to Jewish mysticism. One of the most famous episodes occurs when Jacob dreams of a ladder extending between heaven and earth, with angels ascending and descending upon it. This vision would later become a powerful symbol within Kabbalah and mystical thought. The ladder represents the connection between the spiritual and material worlds. It suggests that reality consists of multiple levels and that communication between these levels is possible. Jacob's 12 sons become the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel, establishing the foundation for the future nation. The story of Joseph introduces another major theme within the Torah, dreams and divine guidance. Joseph receives prophetic dreams, interprets the dreams of others, and eventually rises to power in Egypt. Through his wisdom and foresight, he preserves countless lives during this time of famine. The Torah repeatedly portrays dreams as channels through which deeper truths can be communicated. This theme would later become highly influential within both Jewish mysticism and Western esoteric traditions. Joseph's story also emphasizes forgiveness, providence, and the mysterious ways through which suffering can ultimately contribute to growth and transformation. No figure dominates the Torah more than Moses. Born during the time of the oppression, raised within Pharaoh's household, and called by God through the burning bush, Moses becomes the instrument through which the Israelites are delivered from slavery. The Exodus is one of the defining events of the Torah. It represents liberation from bondage, the triumph of freedom over oppression, and the possibility of transformation through divine guidance. On a mystical level, Egypt often symbolizes the state of spiritual limitation and unconsciousness. The Exodus becomes a metaphor for awakening, just as the Israelites leave captivity behind, and the soul seeks liberation from fear, ignorance, and attachment. This theme of liberation later becomes central to countless mystical traditions. At Mount Sinai, Moses receives the Ten Commandments, establishing a foundation for ethical and spiritual life. These commandments address humanity's relationship with both God and fellow human beings. They emphasize reverence, honesty, responsibility, fidelity, and respect for life. The significance of the Ten Commandments extends far beyond Judaism. Their influence can be found throughout Western civilization and continues to shape moral discourse today. For mystics, Sinai also symbolizes direct encounter with the divine. It represents the possibility that human consciousness can receive higher wisdom and participate in sacred revelation. Following the Exodus, the Israelites spend 40 years wandering in the wilderness. This period serves as a time of testing, purification, learning, and preparation. The wilderness becomes a spiritual classroom. The people must learn trust, discipline, patience, and reliance upon divine guidance. They repeatedly face challenges, failures, and opportunities for growth. Mystically, the wilderness symbolizes the initiatory path. Every seeker experiences periods of uncertainty and transition. Progress often requires moving through unfamiliar territory before arriving at a greater understanding. The wilderness reminds us that the transformation is a process rather than an event. One reason the Torah has remained so influential is that its stories operate on multiple levels simultaneously. They describe historical events, but they also reveal patterns within human consciousness. Egypt becomes a symbol of limitation. The Exodus becomes a symbol of liberation. The wilderness becomes a symbol of transformation, and the Promised Land becomes a symbol of spiritual fulfillment. The patriarchs become archetypes of different aspects of human development, and viewed through this lens, the Torah becomes more than history. It becomes a map of the soul's journey. The Kabbalists taught that the Torah possesses multiple layers of interpretation. A story may contain a literal meaning, a symbolic meaning, a moral lesson, a mystical teaching, and a hidden spiritual truth simultaneously. Every letter, every word, every phrase becomes significant. The Torah is viewed not simply as a text, but as a living revelation whose depths can never be fully exhausted. This approach would eventually give rise to Kabbalah, the Zohar, and the centuries of mystical interpretation. The Torah became the foundation upon which all later Jewish mysticism would be built. One of the most important ideas within Judaism is that the Torah was never intended to stand alone. According to Jewish tradition, alongside the written Torah, there existed an oral Torah, a body of explanations, interpretations, and teachings necessary for understanding and applying the written text. While the written Torah provided the foundation, the oral Torah provided the framework through which that foundation could be understood and lived. For centuries, these teachings were passed from teacher to student through direct instruction, and as time passed and circumstances changed, concerns arose that this wisdom might be lost. This eventually led to the development of the Mishnah and later the Talmud, which preserved generations of interpretation and discussion. The Torah therefore became not merely a sacred text, but the center of an ongoing conversation that continues to this day. The relationship between the Torah and the Talmud can be compared to the relationship between a seed and a tree. The Torah provides the essential principles, while the Talmud explores how these principles are understood and applied within the complexities of life. The Torah asks fundamental questions concerning God, humanity, morality, and purpose, and the Talmud expands these questions through centuries of discussion, debate, and interpretation. Every law, story, and teaching within the Torah becomes an opportunity for deeper exploration. Without the Torah, there would be no Talmud. Without the Talmud, many dimensions of the Torah might remain inaccessible. Together, they form one of the most influential intellectual and spiritual traditions in human history. While the Talmud focuses primarily on interpretation and application, Kabbalah turns its attention toward the hidden dimensions of the Torah. The Kabbalists believe that the Torah contains multiple layers of meaning concealed beneath the surface of the text. For the mystic, the stories are not merely historical accounts. They are symbolic expressions of spiritual realities. Every character, event, and location becomes an archetype reflecting deeper truths about consciousness, creation, and the soul. The Kabbalists taught that the Torah is a living revelation whose mysteries cannot be exhausted. The deeper one studies, the more profound its meanings become, and in this way the Torah serves as the foundation upon which the entire structure of Jewish mysticism is built. One of the most fascinating developments within Kabbalah was the interpretation of the Torah through the Tree of Life. The Kabbalists viewed the stories, the symbols, and the teachings of the Torah as expressions of the divine emanations represented by the Sephiroth. The Tree of Life became a map through which the Torah could be understood on a deeper level. Characters, events, and spiritual principles could be examined in relation to the Sephiroth, revealing hidden patterns and connections. In this sense, the Torah and the Tree of Life became complementary perspectives of the same reality. One presents the teaching through the narrative, while the other presents them through symbolism and sacred structure. The Zohar emerged as the great mystical commentary upon the Torah. While the Torah represents the stories, the Zohar explores their hidden dimensions. The Zohar teaches that every word of the Torah contains layers of spiritual significance, and beneath the literal narrative exists a deeper reality waiting to be discovered. The stories become symbols of cosmic processes, divine emanations, spiritual transformation, and the soul's journey toward enlightenment. Through the Zohar, the Torah became not merely a sacred text, but a gateway into mystical experience. The familiar stories of Genesis, Exodus, and the patriarchs were transformed into maps of consciousness and spiritual awakening. For this reason, the Torah and the Zohar are inseparable within the Kabbalistic tradition. The mystic approaches the Torah differently than the ordinary reader. Rather than asking only what a passage says, the mystic asks what it reveals about the nature of reality, consciousness, and the divine. Kabbalists often meditate upon specific verses, examine the numerical values of the Hebrew words, explore symbolic correspondences, and search for hidden patterns within the text. Every letter becomes significant, and every word may contain multiple layers of meaning. This approach does not reject the literal meaning of the Torah, but it expands it, and the text becomes a multidimensional teaching capable of speaking simultaneously to the intellect, the imagination, the soul, and the spirit. For the mystic, studying the Torah becomes a form of contemplation and spiritual practice. One reason the Torah has remained influential for over 3,000 years is that it continues to speak to each generation in new ways. Every age encounters different challenges, asks different questions, and seeks different forms of understanding. Yet the Torah continues to provide guidance because it addresses universal concerns, questions concerning justice, freedom, responsibility, suffering, purpose, community, and humanity's relationship with the divine remain as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. The Torah is therefore not merely an ancient document, it is a living text whose meanings continue to unfold through study, reflection, and interpretation. The influence of the Torah extends far beyond Judaism. Its teachings have shaped Christianity, Islam, philosophy, law, ethics, literature, art, and countless aspects of Western civilization. Concepts such as human dignity, moral responsibility, justice, covenant, compassion, and the sacred value of life owe much to the influence of the Torah. Its stories have inspired generations of artists, writers, scholars, and spiritual seekers. Few texts in human history have exercised such a profound and lasting impact upon culture and civilization. Even individuals who have never opened a Torah have been influenced by its ideas that originated within its pages. Many ancient texts have disappeared into history, studied only by specialists and scholars. The Torah is different. It continues to be read, studied, discussed, debated, and contemplated by millions of people throughout the world. Its stories remain alive because they speak to universal aspects of the human experience. The Torah addresses humanity's deepest concerns. Where do we come from? Why are we here? How should we live? What is our relationship to one another? And what is our relationship with the divine? As long as these questions remain relevant, the Torah will remain relevant. Perhaps the greatest mystery of the Torah is that it reveals something different to every generation that encounters it. To some it is a history, to others it is law, to others it is philosophy, ethics, theology, or sacred literature. But for the mystic, however, the Torah becomes something much more. It becomes a mirror reflecting the soul. It becomes a map revealing the journey of consciousness. It becomes a doorway into deeper understanding. The Torah invites us to look beyond the surface of reality and recognize that existence contains layers of meaning waiting to be discovered. Its stories remind us that every journey, every challenge, every exile, every wilderness, and every return reflects something within ourselves. For thousands of years, people have turned to the Torah seeking wisdom. Yet the remarkable thing is that the Torah continues to reveal new insights no matter how many times it is read. Its depths seem inexhaustible. This is the mark of a truly great sacred text. Not that it provides all the answers, but that it continually inspires the deeper questions. When we consider the Torah's influence, it is difficult to overstate its significance. It has shaped religions, civilizations, legal systems, moral philosophies, and spiritual traditions across the world. It has inspired prophets, scholars, mystics, saints, philosophers, and seekers for thousands of years. Yet perhaps its greatest achievement is not the institutions it created or the cultures that it influenced. Its greatest achievement is that it continues to awaken the human spirit. Generation after generation, people open its pages searching for meaning, purpose, wisdom, and connection to something greater than themselves. The Torah has become one of humanity's greatest vessels of memory, preserving not only the teachings and stories, but humanity's enduring search for the divine. Standing before the Torah is like standing before a vast mountain whose summit disappears into the clouds. We may explore its paths for a lifetime and still discover new vistas. We may study its words for decades and still uncover new depths. The more closely we examine it, the more profound it becomes. That enduring mystery is perhaps its greatest power. The Torah reminds us that wisdom is not merely something to possess, but something to pursue. It teaches that beneath the visible world lies a deeper reality, and that the journey towards understanding it itself is sacred. The Torah stands as one of the foundational texts of human civilization. It is a story of creation, covenant, freedom, responsibility, morality, and humanity's relationship with the divine. It serves as the source from which Judaism emerged, the foundation upon which the Talmud was built, the wellspring from which Kabbalah drew its symbolism, and the sacred text that inspired the mystical insights of the Zohar. For the historian, the Torah preserves the origins of people. For a philosopher, it raises profound questions about existence and ethics. For the mystic, it reveals hidden dimensions of reality. And for the spiritual seeker, it offers guidance on the journey toward wisdom and understanding. Whether approached literally, symbolically, historically, or mystically, the Torah remains one of humanity's most extraordinary treasures. It continues to challenge, inspire, and transform those who engage with it. More than 3,000 years after the earliest stories were first told, its voice continues to speak. It calls each generation to seek wisdom, pursue justice, deepen understanding, and remember that behind the visible world lies a mystery far greater than ourselves. In that mystery, the Torah continues to live. Okay, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this one. Thank you for sticking around. I know this one was a little long, but this one really deserved a lot of time. So up next, as I said earlier, this one concludes the series on Kabbalah. I'm going to be talking about egregores next, then Enochian magic, then I'm going to get into the Arbitel, the Picatrix, the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Kabbalion, and then we're going to start taking a deep dive into Hermeticism. Really wanted to let you guys know that I appreciate each and every one of you. I want to welcome in all the new subscribers and everyone that has been here since the beginning. I really appreciate you guys. I wouldn't be able to do any of this if it wasn't for you guys, and I do not take any of you for granted, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Okay, I will see you guys next time.